Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jake, the Scary Story Guy. Ooh. And today we're talking about Insidious, a movie that was released, and it feels crazy to say this, over 10 years ago. The first time I watched this movie, I was in high school. That fact is triggering an existential crisis, which is frankly much scarier than anything in the actual movie. I'll never experience high school again. Time is an unstoppable wheel, and the universe doesn't care about me. Someday I'm going to die, and the only thing that will remain of me are these stupid videos that I posted on YouTube in my late 20s. Oh my god. Let's talk about this scary movie. Insidious was directed by James Wan, written by Whannell, and released in America in April 2011. And at the time, the horror genre was going through a bit of a rough patch, thanks in part to Wan and Whannell themselves. See, at this point, these two were best known for creating the hit movie Saw, which was released in 2004. And it must be said, these guys didn't really do anything wrong. The first Saw movie is pretty damn good. However, Saw was enough of a box office hit for movie studios to take note. And in the mid to late 2000s, the phrase horror movie basically became synonymous with torture porn. And even though Wan and Whannell became less involved with that franchise over time, that didn't stop Lionsgate from making movie after movie after movie. I mean, I think there's like 9 or 10 movies in that franchise now. And that's to say nothing about all the Saw-like films that came out around that time, which is partially why people were so surprised by Insidious. Now, like I said, this movie came out over a decade ago, so I'm going to talk about it on the assumption that you've all seen it. So, spoiler warning, I guess, but if you've really gone the last decade of your life without watching Insidious, then shame on you. Go, watch it. Go. Insidious is the story of a married couple whose son mysteriously enters a coma-like state, and over the course of the movie, strange and frightening events begin to take place around him. We eventually learn that the boy has inadvertently engaged in astral projection, but his soul has strayed too far from his body and is now lost in an otherworldly realm called the Further. Ooh. So now it falls to his father, who visited the Further himself as a child, to bring him back safely. Which he does. Kind of. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that they really like the first half of this movie, the sort of haunting setup, but that the second half, when they actually go into the Further itself, is disappointing. I disagree. Respectfully. Admittedly, the haunting section is pretty good. Everyone remembers the Darth Maul face, but there are a lot of really effective scares here. It also managed to ruin that Tiptoe Through the Tulips song for an entire generation, so congrats on that, I guess. But I actually like those scenes in the Further a lot better than most people do. It's just so damn weird. I'm sorry, but those scenes in the 1950s style living room, easily the scariest part of the whole movie. I mean, the lighting, the makeup, the atmosphere, the whole thing is just the stuff of nightmares. And it's obviously unconventional, which I think after the barrage of A24 horror movies we've seen lately, we're more used to that. But at the time this came out, those scenes in the Further were almost uniquely weird. I think a lot of scary movies lose their edge once they start trying to explain what's happening and show too much. But to me, Insidious actually largely avoided that issue just because those closing scenes were so unsettling. Now granted, there were a couple combat scenes near the end that looked pretty cheaply made, but that's the crazy thing. This movie was cheaply made. It cost like $1 million to make, which, given that this movie ended up making $100 million, and the series as a whole has grossed over $540 million, I'd say that was a sound investment. It's also impressive that they were able to get Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne on that type of budget, because that is a class of actor that just really wasn't often seen in this kind of movie. They both really went for it, and they're very believable as this couple. I thought Rose Byrne in particular was incredible, which if you ever want to give yourself whiplash, just watch Insidious back-to-back with Neighbors, also starring Rose Byrne, and marvel at this woman's range. I will give a bit of parenting advice, though. Just a dollop, if you will. If you're ever downstairs and your husband's not home, and you hear a man's menacing voice come over your infant's baby monitor, perhaps that's not the time to dick around. Upstairs, Rose! Vamonos! Guys, Insidious is a very solid horror movie that came out at a time when the genre needed it. There's good acting, fun scares, creepy atmosphere, the score, we haven't even talked about the score yet, that's awesome too. I'm gonna give Insidious 4 stars out of 5. Now, as I stated earlier, this movie spawned a franchise. There are 3 more films in the Insidious saga, and I'm gonna review them all right here over the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned. If you want to see more scary movie reviews like this one, please go ahead and subscribe, and as always, if you'd like to read my original horror stories, I'll include links in the description below. Thanks for watching my video. Here's hoping you survive to see the next one.